Okay, good morning, members and members of the public. Anybody that's watching on YouTube, Police Scotland, the IT staff, the clerks, and welcome to the May meeting of the Angus Licensing Board. Mrs. Anderson, is there any apologies for absence, please?
There's no apologies, convener.
Okay, declarations of interest. I have one. And it's in relation to agenda item 6A, the 10 Cafe Bar in Forfar. I frequent that establishment. In fact, I was in it yesterday for the first time in a long time. But I have no financial interest and I will remain in the chair during consideration of that item. Thank you. Councillor Fairweather. You're on mute, but I think it'll probably be the same declaration as mine. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Boyd.
Hello, it is item 6. I'm not sure of the alphabetical number there, but it's number 6, the gather in Carnoustie. But keeping continuity with previous declarations, I declare that I have an interest of knowing the owner and the owner's father being a previous Carnoustie councillor. Therefore, I shall leave the virtual room.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Boyd. No one else? Okay, members, agenda item number 3, minutes of the previous meeting. We are asked to approve as a correct record the minute of meeting of this board held on the 25th of March 2021. Do we agree? Okay, thank you. Members and membership of the Angus Licensing Board at agenda item 4, with reference to the council meeting of the 13th of May 2021, when changes were made to the membership of the Civic Licensing Committee and Angus Licensing Board to comply with the principles of political balance. The board are asked to note that Councillor Nicholl is no longer a member of Angus Licensing Board following the board's membership reducing to 9. Do we agree to note that?
Agree.
Okay, thank you very much. The first agenda item of business, 5A, the new premises licence under Licensing Scotland Act 2005, and it's the Wee Bear Cafe Bridge End of Luntrathen. Good morning again, Mrs. Hood. It's nice to see you. I believe you're dealing with this application. You're on mute. You're on mute, Mrs. Hood.
Sorry, that's not like me. Good morning. I'm surprised you need the microphone with my voice.
I'm going to turn my volume down now.
Good idea. Thank you very much. And I do apologise for that. Stupid. Do you have anybody who's doing an introduction or anything, or do you want me to just leap straight in?
No, I don't think there is anybody to do an introduction.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you. Well, this is one that I'm really excited about. I met Gareth Finn and his wife Anne when about a month and a half ago, and it's a beautiful little cafe set within Bridgend of Linrathen, which I'd never heard of before, I have to admit, and I was quite glad I had sat-nav. The premises are absolutely lovely. They're a little cafe. It started off with a little round cafe at the front, and it's extended now into an oblong shape with a lovely porch at the front. They specialise in home cooking. They serve tourists, travellers, and more importantly, locals. It's the only premises for miles around where anybody can actually go and have a drink, something to eat, etc. They want to open for off sales because they intend to be offering specialist whiskies, local beers, this sort of thing for the usual off sales hours 10 until 10. And they would like to open for on sales from Sunday from 10 in the morning till midnight, Sunday to Thursday. And Friday and Saturday, we discussed this and I put in till 1 o'clock just in case they had a function. But this is not terribly, it's not the most important thing to them, because to be perfectly honest, they would prefer not to be open at that time. But this was a just in case they get something on a Friday or Saturday night where it would be appropriate to have the later hours. Gareth advises me that his intention, should he get that, would be to stop serving at about 12:30 to give at least half an hour for people just to go home, to make things easier on everybody in terms of getting people out of the premises. And I don't think that they would have any real intention of opening normally until that time. But it is against policy, and we will go with whatever your honours think is appropriate. It's in the nature, I know it sounds a bit silly, the planning consent was for a village hall, and the premises are used, albeit they're in private ownership, as if they were a village hall. It's the sort of place that people have meetings, they come to discuss things that might be going on in the community. They offer restaurant facilities. I put in the word bar meals because nobody really knows what the difference is between a restaurant and a bar meal, but they have small meals and more formal ones. They do receptions, including, and they would do weddings, but they would be small weddings because of the capacity. Funerals, of course, birthday parties, retirements. They have recorded music. It actually is quite good for the folk scene, I'm told, and people tend to go along, or before obviously lockdown, people were tending to go along and start a sort of folk music thing. So that's why live music is there. They've got dance facilities. It's not really dance facilities. It's somewhere that if somebody wanted to have a schmooze at a wedding, they'd be doing something along those lines. They might offer theatre, although they haven't done this. And I discussed this with them quite carefully. My stepmother lives in Ardnamurchan, and they quite often get 3 people from, the Scottish Opera or something coming to do a song in the village hall or something like this. So it's possible that these things might occur. Films, I think, would be highly unlikely, but we put it in because it's an option 6 times a year to add an additional something for this quite remote community. And outdoor drinking facilities would be kept to the balcony area. The premises can open at 7 o'clock in the morning for breakfast. Now, why do they do that? They've got a lot of walkers, tourists, people traveling to and from. People come over the hills and down this road. Apparently, I've never done it, but I think it's meant to be quite a popular route. So they would like to be able to be open to offer these, I'm going to say travelers, but you know what I mean, some form of hospitality at that time in the morning. They've been asked a couple of times if they could offer at some stage or other a champagne or cocktail breakfast. Now, I can understand that that's not something that normally happens, but then again, I suppose if you were up there for a wedding or if you were celebrating coming over the hills and coming down, getting picked up, you might want to have something like that in the morning. I can't imagine that's something that would be going on all the time, and neither can my clients. But again, it's to offer them as much as possible. They can be hired in whole or in part for private parties. There's, as I said, there's sort of round bit at the front, and then there's the oblong bit at the side, because that might be convenient at times. They would be holding, and they have done before being licensed, arts and crafts exhibitions with local people producing these sort of things. And they might hold an occasional market within the premises to sell local products. Children and young persons under 13 would have to be accompanied by an adult at all times. Children 14 and 15 and young persons 16 and 17 could access the premises until 6 o'clock at night for the purpose of having a snack, a soft drink, that sort of thing. This is becoming more and more common. It is what holiday people do, and it's something that I would hope your honours would consider. If people are accompanied, then they could be in right through. All times the premises are open, because obviously if you're in that sort of community, you would tend to have your children with you in all public parts of the premises. The capacity, the Wee Bear Cafe, which is the circular bit, is 40. The dining cafe bar 73. The internal total is 113. There are 32 people permitted on the patio, but this wouldn't affect the overall capacity because it's weather dependent. And to be honest, 113 would be a sort of max that my clients could cope with. I think this is a super opportunity for my clients, and I hope you would see it's a welcome suggestion for this very remote premises. And with subject to any questions, I move the grant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hood. Members, any questions? No questions. Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Convener. Yes, it's just one question for Mrs. Hood. I've got one for the officers when it's appropriate, but the champagne and cocktail breakfasts you're reckoning would be very rarely done. Could that not be done under an occasional license rather than having the facility 365 days of the year?
Well, not really, because it would be kind of, if I was walking over, just pretend, I don't think this is likely, but if I were walking over the hills from the other side and got there, I might say, gosh, you know, I've done it. I'd like a glass of champagne or something like this. It's not beyond the bounds of belief. I mean, I once did the moonwalk in Edinburgh, and my friend had a bottle of champagne in her house for me when I staggered in almost exhausted at the end of it. So it's not something that could be managed by occasional license. But what I can say is it's just not likely to become, it's not a boozer, you know, it's a beautiful little cafe, and that's what its thrust is. And this would be very, I mean, I'm saying very occasional because I really can't, I wouldn't drive there. Well, I wouldn't drive to drink anyway, but you know, I wouldn't drive there, but it might be something that just would happen for a particular reason.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Whiteside.
It's more of a comment. Do you want me to go ahead?
Councillor Moore, do you have another question? Because before we go to comments.
Yes, I have a question of the officers.
Okay.
Mrs. Hood was referring to films being unlikely. Now, in my previous existence, I dealt with licensing, and films included anything shown on a television. So in order to be able to show a football match or a royal wedding or anything like that, the premises had to be licensed for films. And I'm just wondering if that is the same case up here.
Okay, now, which officer would help us with that?
Convener, in terms of showing films, there is a separate license for a cinema license, but there are exemptions for occasional use. And there are separate licenses which may be required if showing certain types of television, which is dealt with separately out with the local authority. But in general, I think what Councillor Moore would be referring to would be a cinema license, but there are, I think you can use it up to six times before a license would be required. So occasional use wouldn't require a separate license in most instances.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go to comments now then. Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, convener. I just like the look of this application. I think it's rare that we get facilities like this in rural areas. I think it's excellent for the local community. As far as the element that's out with licensing policy, I think we made a bit of a precedent recently with another premises, the Roos Leap. I don't think there's any risk to this, and I would be fully supportive of this application.
Thank you, Councillor Whiteside. Councillor Fairweather.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I agree with Councillor Whiteside. I think this is this sounds like a terrific venture. So all I'm going to say is I wish the owners well and good luck. And I'll be moving to Grant.
Thank you, Councillor Fairweather. Councillor Boyd.
Yes, similar to the other comments, this is a fantastic place in Angus, bringing tourists to Angus. It's going to be crazy busy this summer, I can assure you. And hopefully, if we don't go into another third lockdown, but this is absolutely ideal for Angus, a wonderful tourist destination, and I wish them all the very best.
Thank you, Councillor Boyd. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, convener. Yes, it's going to be crazy busy this summer, and let's raise a glass of champagne to that.
Yes, I agree. As I've said, and various other of my colleagues have said that I know this is a new venture, obviously, but existing ones have been absolutely decimated over this past year, and I think we've got to be as flexible and as supportive of these businesses as we can. Yes, as Councillor Whiteside said, it is out with policy, but I don't think it's going to cause any trouble whatsoever. And if it does, it will be reported back to the board, and we can take action and deal with it accordingly. So I'm going to go to the recommendations now, and we'll just go through it just for the minutes. If I can find it, I've got about 3 different things on the screen here. Okay, members, so we've got the description of the premises. To the core times, do we agree the core times?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Activities, do we agree the activities?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Are there any other activities at 4A, B, C and D? Are they agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Number 5, children and young persons, A, B, C and D, is that agreed?
Agreed.
And do we agree the capacity at number 6?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to move then that we grant. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, Mrs.
Agreed.
Hood, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Your Honours. I'm absolutely delighted, and I'll phone my clients as soon as the board meeting's over. Thank you.
Yes, and wish them all the very best from us. It's good to see, as colleagues have said, another business opening up in a rural
you.
area. Thank you very
Thank
much. Okay, the agenda item 6, we'll go to 6A, and it's the 10 Cafe Bar, 12 to 14 Castle Street, Forfar, and it's Mr. Alan Hampton that's going to speak to this application. So the screen is yours, Mr. Hampton.
Agreed.
He's here, but he's on mute. Maybe having problems with the microphone.
Hello.
There we go. Good morning. That's it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Excellent. Thank you. Speaking myself there.
That's all right.
Yes, right. 10 Cafe Bar is making this application for an extension to the terminal hour by 1 hour on a Friday and a Saturday as part of our plan to rebuild our business after being closed for almost a year. At the moment, unlimited unsupervised amounts of alcohol are available to the public via off licence. We feel that the responsible way forward is to make sure that safety is guaranteed under the watch of trained, licensed staff, constantly carrying out due diligence. Our customer base understands this, and they take comfort from this. This particular issue was identified as an area to improve the quality of our customer experience, as it negated the need to migrate to an alternative venue and to wind down and relax at the end of the evening. Anyone who is familiar with our bar will be aware of our ethos of zero tolerance to any form of antisocial behaviour or overindulgence. And indeed, our business plan is predicated on a parallel with the licensing objectives, where comfort, safety, and environmental well-being are the key issues. Our premises is well known for its hard line and zero tolerance. Our track record in this regard is testament to this, without any police call-outs during our 11 years of trading. This is also the case with our neighbours, to which every single one we hold an excellent relationship. And again, this is borne out with our track record, with, to my knowledge, no complaints at all from any of our neighbours in our 11 years of business. At the present, the door is closed at 12:45 for the 1 AM termination. It is our intention to continue this, so there would be no additional customers added to the normal door closing time. This would also ensure that the bar was not seen as a venue of last resort. We are also aware that the board can grant this licence. It can also remove this licence. And we would ensure that our excellent safety and nuisance track record was maintained. And we are confident that there would be no negative implications for our business or the greater community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hampton. Mr. Hampton, I've just got to ask, you are aware that the Police Scotland have submitted a letter of objection. Have you seen that?
I have seen that. And again, if I saw that there was if there'd been any evidence of that with us previously, I would have understood it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Police Scotland, do you wish to comment on your letter before I ask members if they've got any questions? No. Maybe the police.
I think convener police are on mute.
I have asked them to unmute, but I think because they're on the phone, it takes a couple of seconds for it to filter through. I think they also have to use *6, if I remember correctly, to unmute themselves.
Oh, thank you, John. Okay, I'll just give them a bit of time. That's obviously the technology. No.
I think it's also, I think that's him now.
Oh, there we go.
Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are. We can now, Yvonne. Yes. Good morning.
Apologies.
That's all right.
Right. Yeah, the police position was basically because the premises are situated in the town centre in Forfar and surrounded by both commercial and residential properties. whilst the demographics are not completely known to us, there could be people with young families and shift workers residing there. So the premises currently provide cafe, restaurant and bar meals. They hold live music events as well as private functions such as birthday parties and weddings. Their current terminal hour is 0100 hours on a Friday and Saturday evening and midnight on all other evenings. Premises where activities are permitted to be carried on as specified in their operating plan comprise public entertainment, and provided that alcohol is sold as ancillary to the entertainment, so generally discos, dance halls and nightclubs, may be permitted by the Angus Licensing Board to open till 0200 hours on Saturdays and Sundays, Fridays and Saturdays. So the premise does not have any dancing facilities specified in their operating plan. Therefore, their application is contrary to the board policy, and the late terminal hour of 0200 hours would result in increased noise nuisance and breach the licensing objective of preventing a public nuisance. It's for this reason that Police Scotland think it's appropriate to submit a letter of objection to this increase in the terminal hour.
Okay, thank you very much. And can you just confirm, Constable Maz, that Mr. Hampton said in 11 years that he's been, and I certainly in 9 years that I've been on the board, I don't recall any incidents that you've had to report. Can you just confirm that that is the case? You've never had to bring anything to the attention of the board that you've had to deal with?
Yeah, we generally, when we have applications in, do a check back on our system, roughly 2 years that we look at, and there's absolutely no incident directed to 10 Cafe Bar that I was able to find.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any questions?
Yeah.
Councillor Moore?
Yes, thank you, convener. Mr. Hampton, Police Scotland were talking about live music. Do you put on any live music? And if so, what's the terminal hour for it, please?
We perform occasionally with acoustic acts, so it's a non-electric music, and it is within our current terminal hours at the moment. If it's out with Friday and Saturday, it terminates at midnight, and the same with Friday or Saturday. Sorry, it would terminate at 1 AM.
And I know where you are on Castle Street.
Yeah.
Do you have residential neighbours?
There's one residential, yes, at the first floor level on both sides, yes.
And have they ever complained to you about the noise levels?
Never, in all 11 years, and we have an excellent relationship with our neighbours. In fact, when the bar was actually extended upstairs 6 years ago, we actually went over and above the level of specification for sound deafening in the area adjoining these properties to make sure that they weren't inconvenienced by anything at all.
Right, and can I ask one last question? Have you consulted them about the application to extend to 2 AM to see what they think about it?
I have spoke to one of them who had absolutely no issue at all. The other, unfortunately, is quite an elderly woman who's now in her early 90s. And she's between home and hospital at the moment, so I didn't think it appropriate to bother her with that.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Dundle?
Thanks, convener. Mr. Hampton, what's the capacity for persons in your bar? Has it changed with COVID regulations? And
yes.
Also, yeah, sorry, if you could answer that, and I've got another wee question.
Yeah.
Yeah, the regulations mean you can't have so many people in it that you used to have.
Yes, we're currently at about 40% of our normal capacity, simply because we require all customers to be seated and to have a 1 metre distance.
Yeah, yeah. And following that, if you're not busy, you know, say a Friday night, and you've only got maybe a handful of people in, and you're not expecting any more, will you close the bar, like say 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock, if you've not got a lot of people in?
Yes, yeah. I mean, at the moment, the 1 AM termination, regardless of how busy it is, the door is closed at 12:45, and there's no more people to come in. What we are really looking for is that still continues at that. It's not a case of there'll be people rocking up at 1:45 and such like. We want the door to be shut at the same time. It's just the people to relax and unwind and finish the evening gradually, rather than that hurry to get out.
Yeah, that's what I was anticipating you would say. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Councillor Fairweather, question?
Yes, just a law and admin. Can they confirm, is there a premises across the road, I believe it would be the Royal Hotel, that has a 2 p.m. licence at this present time?
I'm unsure as to whether or not that would have a 2 a.m. licence, but what I can advise the board is that they have obviously granted similar applications in the past. Perhaps maybe business support could check for the Royal Hotel 2 a.m. finish. Could that be done?
Yeah, we'll get them to check that. Thank you.
Yeah, Tracy, can you check that, please?
Convener?
Yes, I'll check for that now.
Thank you, Tracy. Mrs. Anderson, yes?
Yeah, it's just to let you know that Councillor Brown's got his hand up.
I see that. He's got his own hand up. He's waving now. Councillor Brown, you're on mute. That's it.
Hi. Good morning. I've never ever heard of any problem with any of the bars that Mr. Hampton has been the owner of. It's for young people. It's flashy. It's got everything that youngsters want. And there's that many bars round about. How they could tell if there was an outspill onto the street who was making the noise, whether it was coming from his bar or any of the other bars within that area. I would support this 100%.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Yes, as I can certainly vouch for the way that Mr. and Mrs. Hampton and their staff run that establishment. I do frequent it, and I was in it yesterday, and absolutely first class. And the first time I've actually had to scan a QR code to instead of writing your details on a piece of paper who's there. It was the technology, and it's just so well run. So I will certainly be supporting it too. Any comments? Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, convener. I appreciate the good record of the bar. My concern is just around ignoring the advice of Police Scotland and setting a precedent where any bar in Forfar could possibly expect to get a 2 a.m. licence. I'm just wondering if Lindsay or Nanette would have any view on that.
Okay, Mrs. Page or Mrs. Kimmett.
Members, it is against your policy, the application. So in terms of the default position would be to look at refusing it, but then you have to look at overall the licensing objectives and whether those can be upheld. In previous applications similar to this, you've looked at adding conditions. Given the concerns of Police Scotland, you might want to look at adding similar conditions before just granting the application. So the conditions you granted in relation to the Roods Bar in Kirriemuir were that there was no admission after 1 a.m, where live or recorded music is provided, the decibel level will not exceed 85 decibels, and when fully occupied, there are more people seated than standing. You've already heard from Mr. Hampton that he wouldn't be proposing admission beyond 12:45 a.m. So it may be that the board want to look at imposing conditions which will address some of Police Scotland's concerns, but also allow the premises to proceed with the application.
Thanks, Lindsay. I would support the conditions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whiteside and Mrs. Kimmett. Councillor Fairweather.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, like yourself, I frequent number 10, not for the last night, not for the last year. And can I just say that, I mean, I've watched businesses be closed for a year. Some have been able to open because they've got beer gardens, but these businesses deserve our help in rebuilding. I think we can take every application, right? I understand what Councillor Whiteside's saying, but we can take every application coming forward for a 2 p.m. licence by their own merit. And I would certainly agree that we should have conditions. At the moment, all bars are going to have basically half capacity at this time anyway. So for an extra hour, I think that can only help the business, and I'll certainly be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Fairweather. Councillor King.
Yes, Convener, I think I'll probably be a lone voice. We have a policy for a very good reason. This policy has been in place for a number of years, and it was confirmed by this board 4 years ago. We opened the door with the Roods Bar. Now we're just making sure we're wedging it permanently open. If we grant this licence, there will be a flood of similar applications from all across Angus, because it will be quite clear that this particular policy has now been scrapped by the board. The net result of that will be that you will then have the nightclubs coming along and say that they no longer have a 1 hour advantage, which they have enjoyed for many, many years. And they will be seeking 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Whether the police can manage this, I don't know, because the police have always made it clear to me when I was chair of the licensing board that 2 o'clock was as much as they could manage with the nightclubs in Angus. So I won't be around after next May, as you well know. I think that you're making the wrong decision if you grant this, and certainly I would record my dissent if it is granted. I think we should have a long, hard look at why we established the policies, and we shouldn't be breaking them willy-nilly. You may say, oh, this is only the second one we've done. Just wait for another few months and you'll see everybody else coming along and saying, well, the Roods Bar in Kirriemuir's got 2 o'clock and Cafe 10 in Forfar's got 2 o'clock. Why can't I? And I know that everyone's got to be dealt on its own, but it's very difficult to ignore precedent when you have people like Mrs. Hood using it to justify why her client should get an extra hour. Just be very, very careful about granting this extension.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Moore, comment?
Yes, Convener. I hear Councillor King's comments, and to an extent I agree with them. But what we've heard from this is that the police are recommending that we don't approve it based on what could happen, not on the history of the premises. Councillor Brown's told us that he has never heard of any problems, and that must go back to the year dot. But I'm going, let's grant the 2 a.m. If there is a problem, the police can bring it back for review, giving us information that is pertinent to the premises, rather than a general, this is your policy, this is what you should be applying.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Boyd, I think you're next. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Fotheringham. Saying it right this time. Councillor King is exactly right. He said this, I think it was only at the last meeting, and he's now being proven to correct. We have one within even a 6-week cycle. He's correct. He was correct. I think, I don't know what the comments I'll make is the floodgates are opening, and also what happens if we allow these licenses to get them. What happens if these people sell them? No one's denying that this gentleman's running great pubs in Forfar, but in the end of the day, if we are setting precedents now and the floodgates are opening, what happens when the gentleman at some point in time will retire from the licensing trade? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyd. Councillor Dunno?
I think we'll have to look at the fact that the world has changed since COVID, and the people have had different ways of drinking. People are drinking more at home, and the pubs were struggling before we had COVID, and now with all the extra precautions that's been taking place with having half the people in the bars, we're not going to have the big hundreds and hundreds of people piling out of pubs on a Saturday night like we had before, because there's so much regulations, and also everybody's on telephones that are monitored now. We know exactly who's in the bars, we know where they are, we know what they're doing. So it's a completely different set of circumstances than what it was from 2 years ago. And I think we have to take that into consideration. It's going to be different for the police as well, because I just don't think that the youngsters are going to pile back into the pubs the way they did before, because they've spent the last year not doing it. So I think circumstances have changed, and I think we slightly have to look at our policy for changing as well.
Thank you very much, Councillor Durno. Councillor Fairweather, is yours a legacy hand? Yeah.
Convener?
Yes, Mrs. Page.
Going back to Councillor Fairweather's question, the Royal is indeed open until 2 AM on a Friday and a Saturday.
Thank you very much. That was very quick. Thank you as well, Tracy, for that. Okay, any other comments?
Convener,
yes.
Can I just clarify with Mrs. Page? I believe that the Royal Hotel was open for its disco premises, which were separate from the hotel. That was a nightclub. Can we get that confirmed?
Tracy, can you please confirm that, please?
Will do.
Thank you.
I think it is a nightclub, Councillor King. I think you're absolutely correct. The Royal
Yes,
nightclub.
I think it is.
I think it is.
I know I'm correct. It was done under my time.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
fine. That confidence.
Okay, well, I fully respect Councillor King, Councillor Boyd's comments, but I think this is an industry that I've said it and I'll say it again, that has been absolutely decimated over this past time. Councillor Durno hit the nail on the head. Capacities are reduced. They're down to about 40%, I think, now. And I think we've got to help them. This board has the power, if the police, there's an issue, and I very, very much doubt if there will be, because it's so well run. The Hamptons run a tight ship, I can assure you. And I think that we can deal with it. If there's an incident and the police report it to us, we've got the power to deal with it at a later date. So I'm just going to look at this because I've got 3 different screens here. I'm going to move. Mr. Hampton himself has said that he's going to close the door at 12:45 anyway. So that would be a condition that I would propose we put on it, is that no admission after 12:45. And on that basis, Mrs. Kimmett, can you read out what the decibel level was? Can we put that in as a condition as well for music?
Yes, I'll just read the other 2 conditions that you put in place for the Roods Bar, which you may wish to consider. So it's where live or recorded music is provided, the decibel level will not exceed 85 decibels. And the third one is when fully occupied, there are more people seated than standing. I can see Craig Eason's got his hand up and he may wish to comment on the decibel level as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Eason?
Thanks, Chair. That decibel level would have been set specific to that premises.
Okay.
So I wouldn't attach that condition at 85. I think if we were to attach a condition in relation to noise control, the premises would have to be assessed first before we set a specific level.
Okay. And is that something that can be done and then brought back to the, or just attached to it without it coming back to the board, Mrs. Kimmett?
What you could do is set it at a decibel level to be agreed with officers of the council.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, Councillor King, is yours a legacy hand or is it a new one?
No, it's not a legacy hand, but I think you better get yourself a seconder first.
Well, I'm just about to ask for that. I haven't moved it yet. I was asking Mrs. Kimmett what the conditions are. Right, with the
I thought you had moved it. Never mind.
No. With the conditions that Mrs. Kimmett has read out and the ones that Mr. Hampton himself has said, the door will be shut at 12:45. I'm going to move that we grant this application. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, you do, Convener.
Okay, thank you very much. Any amendments?
Yes, Councillor Convener. I'm going to move that we do not grant this licence because it's in breach of policy.
And do you have a seconder, Councillor King?
Obviously not. As I said, a lone voice.
Okay then. Let's move to grant this. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank
Can
you.
I ask the clerk to record my dissent?
Yes, of course, Councillor King. The clerk will certainly take note of that. Mrs. Anderson, thank you. Mr. Hampton, thank you very much. Your application has been granted.
Thank you very much.
With
Thank
the
you.
additional conditions.
With the conditions,
With conditions, absolutely.
But you'll
Thank you
get
very much.
notification of that anyway. That's fine. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, members, the next one is the Corn Exchange in Arbroath. Good morning, Mr. McIvers. Nice to see you again.
Yes, good morning. Likewise, Your Honours. Good to see you all. Hope you're all keeping well. Will we just crack on?
Yes, absolutely. You know the format. You're no stranger here. Yeah. You're like Mrs. Hook, regular.
Thank you, Your Honours. Yeah, this is an application, Your Honours, to bring into the licence on a more permanent basis an extended external area. The premises have enjoyed the use of these areas for some months now, subject, of course, to the lockdowns and so on, but for quite some considerable time during the COVID pandemic by way of occasional licences. And this is really just to sort of regularise the request to bring it into licence on a permanent basis. The proposal, if granted, of course, will be subject to COVID regulations in terms of social distancing, etc., etc. That would have to be factored in. There is a letter of representation from Police Scotland suggesting a couple of conditions. I can confirm that these are perfectly acceptable to the applicants. And likewise, the environmental health reports cite certain standard conditions, which again, of course, are acceptable. Roads consent is in place for the use of these areas. They've operated, as I say, without issue during the past year or so under the occasional regime. If granted, we'd be talking about an extra 48 persons in these areas. That contrasts with a reduction in the capacity as a result of social distancing for the premises generally of well over 70 persons. So it's a move towards restoring the balance a little bit in terms of seats lost. I commend the application to Your Honours. The premises, the areas are of course monitored by staff. The managers wear body cameras and the like, and I'm pleased to say that, as I say, there have been no issues during the periods that they have been able to operate. None of us know how long we're going to be in this situation, Your Honours, in terms of COVID and the restrictions that go along with it. So it's really with an eye to the future to just keep us going for the next while, if you're mindful to grant.
Thank you very much, Mr. McIver. Any questions, Mr. McIver? Councillor Moore?
Yes, thank you, Convener. Mr. McIver, I'm looking at the layout plan which we've been provided with, and we've got, let me just, the 8 picnic tables to the side, which are indicated between the building and the tree, which are clearly shown. What I'm not sure of is where the other 4 picnic tables are, because the only other area I can see has got 8 tables there.
Yeah, there's already a consent in place. It's been in the licence for many, many years, Your Honours, for 4 tables at the front, which has been part of the licence for a long, long time. So this is really to add another line of 4 tables. So if you look at the sort of front of the building, as it were, you'll see that there's 8 tables shown. 4 of them are already within the licence. The extra row is the one that's part of this application.
Thank you very much.
Councillor King?
Yes, Convener, I'm looking at the same plan, and I'm again looking at the semicircular wall. However, I'm concerned that the distance between the barrier fence, which is shown, and the semicircular wall is only 1.4 metres. I don't know if there's anyone from roads here, but is that an adequate distance for persons who are disabled, using wheelchairs, mothers with prams, etc., to get through that particular part? Because at the moment, there's only 4 picnic tables there, which would leave something like 4.2 metres for people to get past. The proposal is to increase the table area by 2.8 metres, which, as I say, only leaves 1.4 metres for people to pass the premises. And can I ask if there's anyone from roads or anyone else who can advise us whether 1.4 metres is considered an adequate walkway for people using wheelchairs, motorised disability scooters, prams, etc.
Good point, Councillor King. Now, Who can answer that for us?
Well, in the silence from any of the officials, Your Honours, my understanding is roads consent has been granted for these areas as of the 10th of February of this year, and it endures for a year from that date.
Yes, convener. I can't comment on the specific requirement for the distance, but I am aware that roads consent is in place, so the roads department are fully aware of the proposal, and I have consented to those tables being in the position that they are out detailed on the plan.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Cummett. Thank you, Councillor Fairweather.
Thanks, Chair. I do believe that the area, the 1.4 metres, would be wide enough, but the other side of the tree, which takes you to the shops going past, is more than adequate as well. I would say nearly double that, right, that size. So there wouldn't be any issues for wheelchairs or prams going past that area.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Durno.
To be honest, the capacity is only going to be increased by 18 people, and to be honest, it's a freezing cold area, and I really can't see a crowd of people, unless it's a really hot day, going to be actually sitting about there, because it's a really drafty cold area.
And the weather's not been great up to now.
No, it's not. It's a windy area.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Okay. Anyone else? Questions? Police Scotland, do you have any? I mean, I know you've got your two conditions in your letter. Do you want to make any comment in the letter, or quite happy with it?
No, we're happy as long as people are agreeable to the recommendations that we put in to the letter. Then we have no objections with the variation.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, then comments. No comments. Councillor Fairweather, you're an old hand. It is, okay. Right, I'm just going to bring up the papers. Okay, so we have yes, Councillor Moore, sorry, I've just changed screens. I can't see the screen, the Zoom screen now.
I've just been pulling up the inclusive mobility pages, and it states a wheelchair user and an ambulant person side by side need 1500 millimetres.
Okay. So is that what we've got? What I haven't got my papers.
1400.
So we need 1500. Okay,
That
well,
is
Monday.
That is what the UK government is suggesting.
Okay, Councillor King.
With respect, our roads department have looked at this and granted permission. That is the end of it as far as I'm concerned. They are the ones who have to look at the regulations that Mr. Moore, Councillor Moore has just looked up. If they think it's okay, then there is no point in going against it. I thought it was small, but for 100 millimetres, that's 4 inches. Let's not bother about it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor King. Anyone else? Okay, we've got the description of the variation, and we have the two suggested conditions from Police Scotland.
Sorry, Councillor Fotheringham, I did have my hand up there. Sorry, I did have.
Oh, sorry,
I just did put it up very late there. Yes, I think Councillor King. I think Councillor King is correct there. Let's stop the grandstanding. This is taking about twice as long as it normally takes by people asking questions that they know the answers to already. So can we try and move this forward? It's now 10:49, and let's try and get this moving a little bit quicker. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyd. Okay, we've got the variation in front of us. I'm going to move to a grant. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you, Mr. McIver.
With the two additional conditions.
With the two additional conditions from the police.
Yes. Out door area, close at 2100 hours, and the accurate and appropriate counting method be put in place.
Yep.
Convener, it would just be to add the standard conditions as well from the Environmental Consumer Protection team. The patrons shall not be permitted to use beyond 9 PM. No music shall be provided in the external drinking areas, and no music or amplified sound should be provided anywhere within the licensed premises with the intention of being heard within the external drinking areas.
Okay, members, that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much, Your Honours.
You're welcome, Mr.
If we could just give a moment for our host to put Councillor Boyd in the lobby for the next item.
Thank you. Looks like he's gone.
Yeah, Councillor Boyd is in the waiting room now.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, members, the next one is the Gather, 25 to 27 Dundee Street, Carnoustie. Good morning, Miss Bowles. You're no stranger to us either, but you may speak to your application.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Bethany Bowles from Gather Kitchen and Deli in Carnoustie. I'm here today to apply to alter our licence to allow on sales of alcohol to complement our popular brunch and lunch menus. We'd like to be able to offer our customers a small selection of wines and bottled local beers and ciders. We've also been designing a small cocktail menu with alcoholic and non-alcoholic options. We want to make sure there's something for everyone and that all our customers have a great experience when they visit Gather. I read the recommendation from Police Scotland for a condition that any alcohol served between 10 AM and 11 AM would have to be with a substantial meal, and I would welcome that as a condition on the licence. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Police Scotland, do you wish to quote Councillor Moore?
Yes, Ms Bowles, I can understand providing a beer or whatever with a meal, but my understanding is you stand around and have a cocktail prior to the meal. Now, what's to stop somebody having a cocktail and then leaving?
That's not the intention with this at all. We've put together a new brunch menu that we launched when we reopened after the latest lockdown, with dishes like eggs Benedict, smoked salmon, and scrambled egg stacks, that kind of thing. So it's kind of a Bloody Mary, an eggs Benedict, a mimosa with some smoked salmon. It's that kind of like brunchy cocktail kind of thing, not like an evening before dinner cocktail idea.
Yeah, on that, I just wonder whether Police Scotland would consider eggs Benedict a substantial meal.
The way we do it, it's a substantial meal. There's 4 rashers of bacon on there. It's a big plate of food.
I'm coming.
Okay,
thank you.
Mrs. Kimmett.
It's just to give the board some advice in relation to the wording of the condition proposed by Police Scotland. I don't know if you want to hear that just now.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Well, before we make the decision.
It's just in relation to the word substantive. I would encourage the board to not use that wording. That's caused a few issues in relation to the COVID guidance. The main issue with the word is it's really hard to define what that means. It's been removed from all COVID guidance. I know this isn't specifically looking at COVID issues, but it has been removed from all the government guidance because it's hard to define, and there has been challenge to that word down south. So if the board is minded to grant a condition in relation to food, I would suggest just changing substantive meal to the service of food, which would be easier to enforce.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? Comments? Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, convener. I would support this application with the condition around the meal, and I look forward to visiting. It sounds excellent.
It does, doesn't it? It certainly does. Okay, we've got the description of the variation in front of us. So the operating plan is to add on to the current licensing with opening times Tuesday to Sunday, 10 AM to 1700 hours. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
We have the capacity of activities to children and young persons. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
And with the condition that Mrs. Kimmett has said, alcohol served prior to 1100 hours must be accompanied by the service of food and not a substantive meal, because it's causing a bit of confusion. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, Ms. Bowles, that's your application has been successful, and as Councillor Whiteside said, I'll certainly be down for a look as well, I think, because it sounds lovely.
I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll let Councillor Boyd come back in.
Councillor Boyd has rejoined the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Thank you very much. Okay, members, 6D, the Giddy Goose, 69 High Street, Forfar, and Mrs. Hood. Thank you very much. Mrs. Hood, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I do apologise. I'm not
Were you-
thinking this morning. Before I start, I'd like to thank the licensing team at Angus because they gave me an enormous amount of help with this one. I had, and I have to admit this, got slightly muddled up as to what was the licensed area because we didn't have a plan that really showed it carefully. And your team sent me a plan indicating what everything is. And we've managed to adjust the application to suit the reality on site. And I really am grateful to them for all their help. So leaping into the application, the Chapel Bank, as it used to be called, basically was, it was probably just a very small hotel that was still stuck as if it was in the 1976 legislation. And its operating plan reflected that. My clients want to turn it into something that is more modern, more acceptable, and certainly more welcoming to members of the public coming in. They want to add in Sunday on sales from, currently it's 12:30, which of course was the old way of doing it, to 11 o'clock in the morning, because like everybody else, you know, people come in for brunch and they want to have something that enables them to have a small drink at that time. They want to add in off sales. Now, there's no intention whatsoever of turning this into a shop, but the reason for adding this in is to offer a selection of local alcoholic products. As we know, we've got fabulous gins in Angus, lovely ciders, all the rest of it, beers, and they want to be able to offer these things to people who are within the premises, perhaps eating. They might want to take a bottle of whatever it is they're drinking home with them. They might want to take a specialist spirit home, which will be on display, but people will not be able to walk in off the street to buy alcohol as if it were a shop. It will not be on display in the way it is in a shop. It'll be something that people were enjoying, and they could ask the licensee, could they have something like that? Also works out, if you're having a bottle of wine these days with a meal, you might only have half a glass. You might only have a glass and say, can I take the rest of this home? And this would facilitate something like that. They want to add in accommodation, conference facilities, live performances. Dance would be almost never occurring because the premises are quite small. Again, theatre, film, indoor and outdoor sports. It's not pool or anything like this, but they might do something in the back car park, such as petanque or whatever. Unlikely, but you never know, and it's better to have it in. Televised sport within and out with core hours. Gaming would not be a gaming machine. They've no intention of putting one in, but they are occasionally, like everybody else, asked if they might do a race night or a casino night for a special event. At that stage, if that were happening, there'd be no children in the area where gaming was taking place. They're adding in bar meals just to cover everything, because nobody knows the difference between a restaurant and a bar meal really, and club meetings, they might as well put that in for all that has any real meaning anyway. They have outdoor drinking facilities at the back in a sort of porch area, and they also have, and this is the thing that threw me entirely, half of the front outside area is licensed and the other half isn't. And I'll have to come back to your Honours to ask to license the other half, because I just didn't get this right. I didn't understand what the position was. So they're wanting to ensure that people could have a cup of tea or perhaps enjoy their breakfast or whatever sitting outside from 7 in the morning. There will be no service of alcohol, of course, until core hours start. The premises can be used by residents and guests for things like yoga, etc. There's always room in a bedroom to do something like this if somebody wants to do it. Quite often it happens that things are cleared for that. Theatre would be on an intimate scale. Comedians, magicians, probably something like this if it was an event on. Films and televised sports we watched on TVs in people's rooms. And occasionally there is a television in the barn. They would like to watch perhaps rugby or tennis, but it's not turning it into a sports bar. There's no intention of doing that. My clients have 2 other premises in Dundee, and that is not the thrust of their businesses. They're situated in their own grounds, and they're quite conveniently situated because they're surrounded by commercial properties and high walls. So there's no likely of any disturbance to any neighbours, even if people are eating and drinking outside. They might have the chef patron, I suppose is how one puts it, Mr. Runciman is a renowned chef, so they might hold the odd cookery event, food and drink tastings and matchings from time to time for the basically for the entertainment of residents and guests. And they might have the odd barbecue. Children and young persons would be permitted in all public areas. And I think this is bringing these premises into the modern age. As far as I'm aware, nothing is against policy. And I move the grant subject to any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hood. Any questions from Mrs. Hood? Councillor Moore?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Hood. You said that it's all commercial premises around the property. Right next door, you've got a church. And I'm just wondering about whether we should be saying, well, yes, people can be drinking at the front when the churchgoers are going in on a Sunday morning.
Well, to be perfectly honest, I don't think this causes much harm in communities across Scotland now. The law changed with regard to Sunday opening in 2000, well, it was 2005 legislation, but it started in 2009. I certainly have a lot of clients who have businesses directly beside churches, and it isn't something that appears to cause any difficulty to churchgoers. The church is a neighbour and would have been neighbour notified. And I'm sorry, when I said commercial, I should have mentioned the fact it was a church, but it's not domestic premises. And there have been no objections or adverse comments from anybody. And I certainly remember when I was young, my mum and dad, when we all went to church, they would quite often go somewhere to have a sherry or whatnot afterwards. So it may indeed be something that would be quite pleasant for churchgoers to think about.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? Comments? Councillor Whiteside.
Yes, thanks, convener. Yeah, another welcome boost to the hospitality industry in Forfar, I would say, and I'm familiar with the properties in Dundee and I found them to be well run and excellent. So good luck to this venture.
Thank you, Councillor Whiteside. Councillor Boyd.
Yes, ditto to what Councillor Whiteside just said. Excellent premises in Dundee and a welcome boost for Angus. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. I pass it every day. Well, 6:15 in the morning, I have to say, when it's totally empty, but they've certainly done a lot to it. Nice and bright yellow doors on it now, and it's looking good outside now. Okay, I'll bring up.
Convener, I think Councillor Brown maybe wants to speak.
Councillor Brown. Councillor Brown, you're on mute. That's it.
You mentioned that an outside games area at the back, and that would be all very well, but what happens to the car park when they're using it for these games? It's quite a busy part of the town, and where do they put the cars if they're going to use the car park as a playground?
I think that's a very fair question, and that is, I think the point is most people coming to the premises are not driving, without being funny. The twice I've been down to see the premises, the car parks only had a couple of cars in it, and those have belonged to staff. But this is not a game changer. If this is something that would be of serious consideration for your honours, my clients would be happy to drop that aspect without any difficulty at all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else comment? Councillor Whiteside, is that?
It was just in response to Councillor Brown. There are public car parks very close by the rear of the property as well.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Comments? Councillor Boyd?
And now they're back being free. It's an absolute win-win situation for all.
Right, before I change my screen, anyone else? Because I can't see your hands going up when I go to the papers. No? Right. Okay, we have the description of the variation in front of us. Number 1, is that agreed? Activities out with the core hours?
Agreed.
Okay, number 2A to I, is that agreed?
Agreed.
And the children and young persons now to be permitted in all public areas. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, move to grant. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Hood.
Thank you very much, Convener,
Granted.
Your Honours. It's always a delight coming to the Angus board, and I look forward to seeing you in person sometime, hopefully in the not too distant future.
Yes, I know.
Have a lovely rest of the day.
We will. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Okay, 6E is the Strathmore Cricket Club, Lochside Park, and it's Mr. Gary Hewitson that's going to speak to this one. Mr. Hewitson, good morning.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning. You may just speak to your application just like the others have done, if you wish.
Okay. The main aspect towards our application is adjusting to allow for an outdoor drinking area, as has become the norm in these COVID times. That's become an essential aspect to the business. We have been operating at the back end of last year and at the start of this summer, since things were allowed to reopen up, with occasional licenses to allow outdoor drinking in the area as proposed, with no issues, and provide a service essentially to our members. The other variations that are on, essentially, when we're putting the variation in, we thought we would take the opportunity to update a few things that are essentially outdated, such as bringing the core times just into line with each other. There are no intentions as it stands to adjust our opening times to those. I don't know how familiar you all are with the club, but obviously our core opening times allow to be open Monday to Friday, daytime and evening, but in essence, our opening times are actually significantly more limited than that. We've proposed to add to allow children and young persons onto the premises around about sporting events, so that they can get in, for example, to get a juice on a training night or a match day when they're there playing and with their families. I think those things are minor variations, which hopefully will not be any of an issue. And I say they're just bringing things into line with sort of modern aspects of life.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any questions? Comments? Okay, I'm going to change the screen and we'll have a look. It's just what we're being asked here. Okay, we have the description of the variation.
Convener, sorry, Councillor Brown's got his hand up.
Oh, sorry, I've just changed screen, so I can't see that. Councillor Brown?
Yes, do you hear me now? Is that
yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Strathmore Cricket Club is probably one of the best run clubs in the area, and I've never played cricket in my life, but it's in a part of the town where it's not going to upset anybody other than the geese on the loch. I just think everything they do, it's done to a high standard, and this could be no different. I would support.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brown. Now I'm going to change my screen. Okay, we have the description of the variation. Operating plan changes, is that agreed?
Agreed.
We agree to the any other activities?
Agreed.
And children and young persons, the terms is to alter the operating plan to allow children and young persons entry to the premises solely for the purpose of their participation in a sporting event, but not after 2100 hours, in accordance with board policy. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
And obviously the layout plan has been changed, and Environmental Health have had no objection to this application, subject to the standard conditions regarding the outside drinking areas being applied to the licence. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, Mr. Hewitson, your application has been successful, and good luck, as Mr. Brown says, Councillor Brown, I should say. The only thing you'll be disturbing is the geese on the loch, so there you go.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Brown, for the kind comments and for the passing of the application.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, members, agenda item number 7 is the Gambling Act 2005, section 349, statement of principles. We have the recommendations in front of us. Are there any questions? No. Comments? No. Okay then. Do we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item number 8, occasional licenses granted under delegated approvals. We're asked to note these. Is that noted?
Noted.
Noted.
Number 9, premises licenses, minor variations under delegated approvals. Are they noted?
Noted.
Agreed.
Number 10, personal licenses under delegated approvals. Are they noted?
Noted.
Number 11, premises license under Licensing Scotland Act 2005. The license is surrendered. Do we note these?
Noted.
Agreed.
And the final item, agenda item number 12, extended hours granted under delegated approvals. Are they noted?
Noted.
Thank you very much indeed. Now we'll just have a little pause, I think, to allow you all to change your screens and bring up the civic licensing documents. Thank you.